Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV, live.drf.com, the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle. That would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. If you're watching along live, you have all those different versions. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Today is Friday, January the 5th, 2018, the first show of 2018. It feels like it's been a while since I've actually been in here on a Friday, and even for that matter on a Monday. So we're going to dust off the sort of gears a little bit, get back into the swing of things. And those of you that listen podcast, you've got plenty of options. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as you do with the recap show, which will be back next week after a little bit of a hiatus, and we've got a lot to go over. We won't touch on any of the races that happened over the holiday sort of period between Christmas and New Year's and whatnot, but we will touch on that on the recap show coming up on Tuesday afternoon next week. This show, though, I spoke with Peter Thomas Fornatale and Jonathan Kinchin, and apologies for those of you that were watching live and looking for the DRF Players podcast. Pete's flu has gone to the next level. They had to be a late scratch. Also worth noting, we'll talk about it again at the end here, because of the little crazy, whatever you wanted to call it, snow bomb that came through the New York City area yesterday. Out of the Gate is delayed until today, so we will not be throwing it to Out of the Gate at 12:30 because we'll be taping that after this show is done. Again, another story for another day. As far as Tuesday was concerned, Peter Thomas Fornatale sent me a message before the show started, the Players podcast, and he said, hey, you want to come on and talk Eclipse Awards? And I said, I'd love to. The problem is I just don't want to take away from what I'm going to talk about on Friday. So I listened to the boys, I listened to them give their cases, I even chimed in with a question for them, and if you listen to that, maybe it'll be tipping you off to where I decided to go in one of these divisions. You've seen people on Twitter, whether it's Ed DeRosa or other folks, going back and forth about who they voted for and why, and again, I think that's the beautiful thing about this. It's your opinion, what you consider the best and the reasons, whatever the voting criteria may be, for each one of these divisions. I'm not going to go over any human connections, but I'm going to tell you who I voted for in all these divisions and why, and we'll give you some visuals to go along with it. And let's just start off right at the top here. Let's go with the 2-year-old males. This is a division where there's really only two choices, if we're being honest. Anybody else that votes for Mendelssohn or anyone else, I suppose, again, you're entitled to your opinion. I would just love to hear the reasoning behind it. I think most people look at it and say it's a 2-horse division. It's either Good Magic or it's Bolt Doro. We're going to take a look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile right now. This is a race that Good Magic wins, and really there's no arguing his performance. It was a giant effort. He goes off. He wins by, I believe, almost 5 lengths. And look back in 3rd place right now on the outside. That's Bolt Doro. And the big thing for me is I firmly believe maybe it's not enough to close the gap. But if you reverse the trips, I'd love to know what Good Magic would have done with Bolt Doro's trip and vice versa. What would Bolt Doro have done with Good Magic's trip? I just look at the overall body of work and say Good Magic has 1 victory. And if you're in the camp that the end-all be-all is the Breeders' Cup, which a lot of people are, then it's a pretty, signed, sealed, delivered kind of shut-door case where it's Good Magic's division and it's Good Magic's championship. I chose to vote for Bolt Doro. I think Bolt Doro's overall body of work is enough for me to look at it and say he's a multiple Grade 1 winner. He's won at 7/8 of a mile. He's won at a mile and a 16th. He's won at Del Mar. He's won at Santa Anita. And he didn't run badly in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and with that bad outside post. I know the outside was where he wanted to be on the main track on Saturday, but still, that was a tough trip for him to overcome. I think just based on that, I don't think the 1 win for Good Magic in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I know it was head-to-head, I don't think the 1 win for him outweighs what Bolt Doro did. If Bolt Doro didn't show up at all in the Breeders' Cup, that'd be one thing. I'd probably have to vote for Good Magic. I wonder going forward who's going to be better. Is it going to be Bolt Doro or is it going to be Good Magic? But I'm voting based on what the overall body of work thus far shows me, and I think Bolt Doro accomplished more than Good Magic did early on. I won't have any knocks or arguments if Good Magic is voted the winner of the 2-year-old males, but as far as I'm concerned, I voted for Bolt Doro. As far as the fillies are concerned, the fillies division, that's a bit of a scramble in here because the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, you had Moonshine Memories, you had a victory from Caledonia Road, which was kind of, I don't want to say out of nowhere because she had run second in the Frisette, but she was 19-1, and I think a lot of people looked at her as nothing more than a long shot. I think those two could easily split the vote, and I think it lends itself to sort of a new face, a fresh face that really hasn't done anything wrong. And ultimately, the way I chose to go, this is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf with the winner and who I voted for 2-year-old female. This is Rushing Fall.
But Fatal Beer's coming home gamely. It's a wild run for home here. Fatal Beer on the outside alongside Rushing Fall. Rushing Fall now getting the lead. Significant form on the inside. A late run down the centre from September as well. Rushing Fall's going to take it. Best performance late. Rushing Fall wins.
There are a lot of people here in North America that put just a real sort of emphasis on dirt racing as opposed to turf racing. I'm not one of those people. I don't care, dirt, turf, synthetic, whatever it may be. I'm not going to hold one horse, his accomplishments above or below another simply because of surface. I don't think that's a fair thing to do. Just because the emphasis of most of our racing is dirt, I don't think that means that you can't have good turf horses win big awards. And we've seen in the past that the voters have agreed with that, where you've had Wise Dan go out and win Horse of the Year, and you've had some other big runs. You've had Zenyatta win Horse of the Year, running on different surfaces. So, but a division like this, I don't want to me, what Rushing Fall has done, she's perfect. She hasn't done anything wrong just yet. She won that race with authority, albeit you could make the argument that she wasn't the actual best horse in that race, simply because of the way that race was run. Some of the other horses that may have had a little bit of trip, or maybe from a pace dynamic, may have been up against it, I think, immediately to her uncoupled stablemate. Significant form. I believe she was more forwardly placed throughout, and she didn't fade at the end. She finished very well, but at the end of the day, Rushing Fall has done nothing wrong. That's a division where I almost wonder if the win for Caledonia Road and the loss and the fashion of the loss from Moonshine Memories is enough to split that division right there, and then you get Rushing Fall in here, and that is sort of the alternative to those two. I have no idea, to be honest with you, who's going to win the division, but I chose to vote for Rushing Fall for Chad Brown. 3-year-old male, this was one of those divisions that I felt was pretty locked up. I'd be stunned if you had anyone else win this division other than West Coast. The question is he going to be unanimous or not? And the ball really started to roll for this horse as far as the 3-year-old championship campaign is concerned when he was victorious in the Travers. This is Larry Colmus with the call.
Into the stretch, and it's West Coast. IRAP confronts him. Gunnavera comes up on the outside of them, and Taprit is fourth. Furlong to run. Mike Smith getting all from West Coast as he clings to the lead from Gunnavera. IRAP is third on the inside. Taprit is fourth. It is West Coast, and he keeps on rolling. And West Coast goes wire to wire in the Travers.
You couple that with the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, plus a very, very good effort in the Breeders' Cup Classic against older horses, based on what the rest of the 3-year-olds have done this year. I don't see a scenario where I could make any real case for any other horse. Now, if you want to talk about second and third, that's when it becomes interesting, but I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that the only thing that really counts toward the overall awarding of the trophy, year-end championship, is the first place votes. So the rest of them, they're just kind of fodder to fill out everything else. I believe ultimately it just comes down to first place votes, and if that's the case, I'm going to be stunned if West Coast doesn't win. The question is he unanimous, or do some other horses, some other 3-year-olds get some votes? I would imagine Always Dreaming will get some votes. Possibly Battle of Midway could get some votes in there. Taprit, I suppose, maybe Cloud Computing, but I can't see either one of those really having a strong case. I just think West Coast, very clearly, 3-year-old champion. We'll find out if he's unanimous or not. 3-year-old filly, to me, really, I could have gone a couple different ways had a certain race gone a different direction. Let's take a look at the Coaching Club American Oaks. This actually, to me, was a pivotal race because you see Abel Tasman out there. Remember, she made that crazy brush down the backside. This was when Elate down on the inside started to put it all together. We knew that she had a lot of potential, and it seemed like it was untapped potential at this point, and then she finally put it all together here after that nice little allowance score at Delaware. There's a part of me that wonders if you reverse this result, and remember there was an inquiry and all sorts of stuff that went onto it. If you reverse that result and Elate is awarded the victory over Abel Tasman, I do wonder if maybe that sways someone like me to vote for Elate over Abel Tasman. I ultimately went with Abel Tasman because the Kentucky Oaks, the Acorn, the Coaching Club American Oaks, and a good effort in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, to me that slightly outweighed, and I don't mean by a lot, it slightly outweighed a close loss in the Coaching Club American Oaks for Elate, a win in the Alabama, a win in the Beldame against older horses, and then running subpar as the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. It was just enough. I do wonder if that race right there, if you change that result, I wonder if someone, I can't speak for anybody else, I wonder if I end up voting a different way and looking at it and saying, you know what? Elate, she's the winner in that division, but she didn't win the coaching club. Abel Tasman did. Abel Tasman put together a really, really stellar 3-year-old campaign. I voted for her for 3-year-old filly champion. Older dirt male, we're not going to show you anything because guess what? His name is going to show up here later on. I ultimately voted for Gun Runner, and I don't think many other people would have any real argument with that. And again, I'm not going to dive into Gun Runner right now because he's going to come up again later on in this little piece here. Older dirt female, we're going to take a look. To me, this was, I know the older females were basically, it came down to short campaigns. All of your main contenders, short campaigns, 3 or 4 races, 3 or 4 races, 3 or 4 races. And to me, that's when a race like the Breeders' Cup carries that much more weight, because they all have abbreviated campaigns and they haven't had the ability or the opportunity to accomplish multiple Grade 1 wins or anything else down the road like that. So to me, a lot of onus went on the Breeders' Cup distaff, and this is the stretch run.
Forever Unbridled, Champagne Room back at the rail. Abel Tasman battling on behind that. They are homeward bound now. Along the inside, we have Paradise Woods, but on the outside, Forever Unbridled takes the lead. Here's Abel Tasman flying late. Abel Tasman coming at Forever Unbridled. Forever Unbridled, the wire will come in time. Forever Unbridled has won the distaff.
So Forever Unbridled, I just kind of look at it and say she beat Songbird up at Saratoga. She was visually very impressive when she won the Fleur-de-Lis, and then she comes back and she wins the Breeders' Cup distaff against Abel Tasman, against Elate, against Paradise Woods, against Stellar Wind. To me, I had a hard time envisioning anyone else win that division. If Stellar Wind had showed up with some sort of real effort in the distaff, I suppose you could have made a case for her even if she didn't win. The problem is she was so bad that day, and her wins basically all came against one horse in Vale Dory, who I think is kind of underrated for what she accomplished in that first half of 2017. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I feel like Forever Unbridled, very clearly, she should be the older dirt female champion. Male sprinter, this one to me, again, kind of cut and dry. I don't think you need to overthink this one. Here's the stretch run of the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and I think Roy H. was just much the best in here. I think this is a scenario where this is a horse, once they gelded him, he turned into a different animal. He was fantastic at Belmont Park. He ran really well at Del Mar when he was floated about 10 paths wide by Dreyfong, who had no rider at that point. That was in the Bing Crosby. And you see this race right here. This is also on the heels of a Grade 1 victory in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. I thought Imperial Hint ran his eyeballs out, but I can't vote for him on the heels of just strictly on a second place finish. And then if you take a horse like Imperial Hint out of it, who are the other horses that have the credentials that come anywhere close to what Roy H. accomplished? Maybe Mind Your Biscuits. I thought Mind Your Biscuits had a really nice campaign for Chad Summers, but the problem is he didn't win enough. And he didn't win enough big races. He won the Golden Shaheen. I think it's a fantastic accomplishment. But when I look and see 2 Grade 1s from Roy H., I see a Grade 2 at Belmont Park. I see another race that he probably should have won at Del Mar if he hadn't been impeded, that Ransom the Moon ultimately was victorious in. To me, Roy H. is another one. Slam dunk. Again, the question comes down to, is he unanimous, or does somebody else see something else other than what I'm looking at, and maybe they can go forward and make a case for, you name it. Maybe it is an Imperial Hint or a Dreyfong, who did win a Grade 1 up at Saratoga, but to me, signed, sealed, delivered. This one is straightforward. Roy H. wins that. Here is the one that I probably am the most uncomfortable with outside of Steeplechase, and I'm not even going to touch on Steeplechase. I was really, really having a hard time with female sprinter, champion female sprinter. And I thought long and hard about abstaining, because I don't know that this is a year where I thought any of them truly deserve any sort of major accolades. But then again, I thought about it, and let's say West Coast hadn't showed up for the 3-year-old males. You have to vote for someone, don't you? I mean, 3-year-old, that's kind of a division. I know it's, in a way, apples to oranges, but my point is, just because I didn't think any one of those before West Coast showed up truly deserved 3-year-old champion honors, I still would have felt like I was obligated to vote for someone. And that's kind of where I ultimately landed here for the female sprinter. And having said that, I don't begrudge anyone for abstaining. And I thought long and hard about it. And ultimately, I chose to go with Unique Bella. And this is her, most recently, this was only about a week and a half ago, out at Santa Anita, where she wins the Grade 1 La Brea. And on paper, this is the only Grade 1 that she has thus far. You see Paradise Woods down on the inside. You see Unique Bella trying. Unique Bella was about 4 or 5 paths off the rail throughout. I had someone send me a tweet right after the race saying, told you were wrong. She could rate. She wasn't headstrong. Well, look at those fractions. She was only about a neck off of a 44-2 pace. It's not like if she went any faster than that, you know, I still wonder what would happen if she was in behind horses. But you know what? That's a topic for next week's recap show. At the end of the day, I looked at her and said she has a Grade 1 win in the La Brea. She has a Grade 3 win against older horses in the LA Woman. And she also had a sprinting victory in her first start in 2017 as a 3-year-old. I know Paula's Silver Lining has 2 Grade 1 wins. I thought those were suspect fields at best, but I suppose if you just want to look at the G1, boy, that makes her, you know, if you just believe in grade 1s or anything else like that, then it's kind of hard not to vote for Paula's Silver Lining. She was just so bad in the second half of the year. I look at other horses in that whole division. Lady Aurelia, if she had won the turf sprint, I probably would have voted for her, but she was so bad in that spot, I couldn't even vote for her as a finalist. I think the big one that most people are going to default to is Bar of Gold. My problem with Bar of Gold is she defeated Open Company once in her career. It happened to be the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Happened to be at Del Mar, which was kind of a quirky racetrack where you needed to be on the outside, which she was. And she got a ridiculous pace scenario to run at. And I know maybe I'm holding it against her when I shouldn't because she won the biggest race in her division. But I don't even know that that was her division. I mean, she only sprinted on dirt, I believe, once, maybe twice all year. She'd run on turf, going long. She'd run on synthetic. I had a really hard time voting for Bar of Gold, a horse that I've always liked. But I kind of know what Bar of Gold is. Unique Bella, maybe again, that's one. This is a division I'm going to be fascinated to see ultimately where the vote goes because I don't have any strong opinion or conviction. I don't know who's going to win. If you told me that I had to make a bet right now, I don't know that I could. I don't know who's going to win, but I ultimately chose Unique Bella simply because maybe recency bias a little bit, but I think that winning in the La Brea, she was also the favorite in the Filly and Mare Sprint, and if you believe that, you know, if you want to handicap the race a little bit, she went way too fast early on. Maybe if she's relaxed a little bit or she just doesn't go quite as fast, maybe she sticks around. I don't know. Again, a division that I had a really hard time separating them. I chose to go with Unique Bella as champion female sprinter. Male turf, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer in this spot for what this horse has accomplished. I had a hard time not voting for world approval. This is him winning the Breeders' Cup Mile.
Leaders as well. They come for home. It's wide open. Heart to heart. Midnight Storm. World Approval is in there. Sweet Wine, the red. Blackjack Cat is in there as well. Lancaster Bomber down at the rail. Late run from Carrara on the outside. World Approval the leader. World Approval coming home gamely. And World Approval will win. World Approval won it. Very close for second.
You couple that with the Woodbine Mile, with the 4-star Dave. He wasn't embarrassed in the longer races, but really the sort of middle distances, mile and an eighth, that seems to be his sweet spot. The interesting race for this race would have been had Beach Patrol been able to prevail in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Then you would have had just an absolute skullbuster of a division. Who do you vote for? Do you vote for World Approval or do you vote for Beach Patrol, who Beach Patrol has multiple Grade 1 wins? Had he won the Turf, he would have had the Turf. He would have had the Arlington Million, I believe, as well as the Joe Hirsch at Belmont. So you would have had a pretty strong case for that horse. And then it would have just ultimately come down to your opinion. I just think without the Turf running second in that race, I think that's just enough to give World Approval the nod. World Approval, I think he's a deserving winner of male turf. We'll find out, though, ultimately, if that's where the voters chose to go. Female turf, this is another one. I didn't love my pick in here, but I kind of felt like, based on her overall body of work, and maybe this is going to end up being a little bit of a Lifetime Achievement Award, Lady Eli, I voted for her for female champion. This is her run in the Diana, and I have no knocks against anything she did throughout the year. It's a shame that she got dinged up as badly as she did at the beginning of the Filly and Mare Turf, because I wonder, had she not gotten stepped on or whatever it was, or when her leg was all gashed up, I'd like to think that she at least makes a run, and she at least makes it close. Maybe she doesn't win, maybe she does, I don't know. But I like the fact that she dug in gamely here. I thought this was a good effort. She had a couple of graded stakes wins here, coming back from last year where she was only a nose beaten in the Filly and Mare Turf. I just kind of feel like Lady Eli, whether you believe in your heart of hearts that she deserves this one this year, I think this is going to be this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. I think Lady Eli is going to win female turf. Horse of the Year, it's the big one. I already said that I voted for him as far as older dirt male is concerned. I have to vote for him for Horse of the Year, and I say that not begrudgingly. I think this is the best horse in 2017 by far, even with his loss to Arrowgate in Dubai. Gunrunner, all he did was show up and run giant race after giant race, and it all culminated with the Breeders' Cup Classic. Here's the call from Trevor Denman.
Right up alongside, it looks like we're in for a classic in the classic, An eighth of a mile to go. Gunrunner digs deep, he finds more collected. West Coast running on third, but Gunrunner the advantage. And Gunrunner is starting to draw clear the final 16. And Gunrunner, a superb performance in the Classic. Gunrunner won it by about 2.5 in the end, collected a very game second.
Hard to argue with Gunrunner not being voted Horse of the Year. And I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure there is another option. I'm going to be very, very surprised if he's not the unanimous choice, even with Arrowgate's success at the beginning of the year, winning the Pegasus World Cup and winning the Dubai World Cup over Gunrunner. I still maintain, at their best, I think Arrowgate beats Gunrunner. But guess what? We didn't see Arrowgate's best in 2017, and we saw a horse in Gunrunner that continued to improve, and hopefully we'll see one final big shot from him at the end of January in the Pegasus World Cup down at Gulfstream Park. Horse of the Year for me in 2017, Gunrunner. Those are my horse selections for the Eclipse Awards. We're going to take a quick break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we'll dive into some handicapping for the first time in what seems like a month on this show. We'll dive into a couple of 3-year-old races as well as a nice turf race out at Santa Anita tomorrow afternoon. Stay with us.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. To California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Men 5-1, Mask 5-2, Handsome Franco 49-1, Where She Told Me to Go 9-1. I look at this race and I say, you know what, it wouldn't surprise me if a horse like Bal Harbour was able to continue on. I think he's a bit underappreciated. Is he a superstar? No, but I think he's okay. I think he can run a little bit. Mask may be the horse with the most upside, the most potential long-term, simply because for Chad it looks like he wants to run all day. I just wonder, is a mile going to be too short for him, particularly at Gulfstream where the one-turn miles you need to be forwardly placed. It doesn't look like he's got a ton of early speed based on that career debut where he broke a little bit slowly. Dak Attack, I think he's very, very interesting in here. To me, he's just going to be an underlay in this spot. Ultimately, that leads me to my pick and the play, and let's spin over to this camera. It's been a while since I've done this, if we're still using this camera. I could be wrong. Here we are. The pick for me in this spot is Santia Men for Antonio Sano. I thought that most recent run from him was very, very good. I know there was another Sano runner in there. There was a much bigger price, and he had to really dig in and beat him out. Gutsy effort from him going shorter, stretching out to a mile. I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. He's also going to be a very, very playable price, and that's why for me it's a $20 win bet. Now again, I've said to you in the past, from a dollars and cents standpoint, it's just a base bet. It's just throwing some number out there. For you, maybe it's a $2 bet. For you, maybe it's a $200 bet. I don't know. I just figured leave it at $20. $20 to win on that horse, but also a $5 exacta using him underneath of what I think are the two most logical runners in here outside of Dak Attack. Again, I have no knock against Dak Attack. I just think he's going to be an underlay in here. The other horses I'll use, Bal Harbour and Mask on top of Santia Men. Those will be $5 exactas with a $20 win wager on Santia Men. Let's move out to the West Coast, the 3-year-olds. This is the Sham. This is a graded stakes race. This also awards Kentucky Derby qualifying points. Let's take a look at that field. It's a field of 7 signed on in here. And the interesting thing for me, and I'll already kind of cat's out of the bag, I don't have a in here because you're going to have to take a look at the formulator of race of the day, or the DRF Bets race of the day, excuse me, when that comes up later on this afternoon. In post position order, number 1, my boy Jack for Keith and Kent Desormo. I think he's actually an okay horse, 19-1. I think he's in a tough spot here. The number 2 is Here Is Happy, 4-9-1. All Out Blitz for Simon Callahan, 24-1. Mourinho for Baffert, 4-1. Shiver Me Timbers for Hollendorf for 5-1. McKinsey Even Money for my value line, and City Plan, 49-1. Again, I'm not going to dive deep into this race. You're going to have to go over to the Race of the Day page, the DRF Bets Race of the Day, and take a look what Illman and I think of this race. Not making any sort of, this isn't rocket science. McKinsey's going to take a world of beating in there. Maybe you can try to poke a hole in him based on that effort in the Los Alamitos Futurity. We'll find out, but again, all the nuts and bolts, that's going to be over on the Race of the Day page on DRF.com. The San Gabriel, though, that's a race that we can dive into a little bit more here, and it's the last one we'll talk about here on this show. This is the field in post position order. Number 1, Flamboyant, 6-1. Number 2, Editore, 32-1. 3, Top of Game, 12-1. 4, Win the Space, 32-1. The 5, Tequila Joe, 49-1. The 6, Isotherm off of a long layoff, 9-2. 7, He Will, one of the horses that he has just driven me crazy throughout his career. I think there's talent. He's just still a major goofball, 6-1. The 8, It's in the Post, one of my sons. 7-2. The number 9, Free Rose, off of a layoff for Richard Balt, is 6-1. And the number 10, Smoky Image, 49-1. A really fun race. You can go a number of ways. There are 2 horses that are going to take a serious beating in here if they show up with their race, even if this distance might be a little bit sharp for them. That's both Isotherm and It's in the Post. It sounds like they're both working up a storm leading into this race. There's a part of me that wonders if it's a stopgap to next month's San Marcos at 1.25 miles, which is, to me, a more favorable distance for both of them. At this 9 furlongs, though, I think there's an interesting play in here. The pick in the play. The pick for me is Flamboyant. Flamboyant has not won a race since 2016. We're in 2018 now, for those of you that were not aware of that. It's been a long, long time between drinks for this horse, but I think he is the epitome of a dirtied up horse where he's been running at distances that are too far. He's been running on surfaces that maybe he may not love, whether it's a synthetic surface up at Golden Gate. The mile distance probably a little bit too sharp for him. 9 furlongs to me, this is his distance. If he's ever going to win a race, it's going to be like this, getting Isotherm off the layoff and getting It's in the Post, who is capable at 9 furlongs, but getting him at a distance that's shorter than his best being out at 10, 11, and 12 furlongs. For me, a $10 win bet on Flamboyant. He should be a very, very playable price in here. And just in case the 2 big horses show up with their run, $5 exactas, the 6 and the 8, Isotherm and It's in the Post, over the number 1, Flamboyant, in the San Gabriel. The picks and the plays, we'll recap all of that next week on the Matt Bernier Show, the recap edition. For those of you that have watched this live, thank you for doing so. You've got live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page. The sort of podcast version right there at the bottom. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. This show every Friday at noon. The recap show every Tuesday at noon. You'll be able to go through and dissect all sorts of stuff. We'll go over the weekend prior's best performances. We're going to have a supersized one coming up next week because we've got about a week and a half worth of racing to go over. And we've had some big, important performances in that time. Normally, we throw it into Out of the Gate, so usually on these Fridays, you get the Players Podcast into the Matt Bernier Show, into Out of the Gate. This week's a little bit different, though, just because of that crazy snow bomb or snowmageddon or whatever the heck you wanted to call it from yesterday. We're here, though. We're going to tape that this afternoon. Should be uploaded on video.drf.com, as well as the Daily Racing Forum's YouTube page later on this afternoon. Whatever you played this weekend, wherever you're playing, however you're playing, should be playing with DRF bets if you're not already. Best of luck, and we will talk again on Tuesday with a recap of the weekend's races and some of the other good things that have happened over the past 10 days. Talk to you soon.